Well, today is the first day of my last semester, and if all goes well, I will graduate in December with my MSW, Master in Social Work, to become a therapist eventually. Hi, I'm Kim. I am trying to make my last decades my best decades, and in the past, I've had some people ask about my MSW journey and going back to grad school, et cetera, et cetera. So I just wanted to kind of talk about that because it's a bit of a momentous day. So I am 61 years old and I decided to go back to school. Actually, I was 58. I think I was, yeah, I was 58. I turned 59 like halfway through my first year. So it's taken me 3 full years. I did take one summer off, and it feels a little bit surreal, I think, for a lot of reasons. One is because I am the only one in my immediate family, like great grandparents, grandparents, parents, to have a bachelor's, let alone a master's degree. So that feels really big. I never thought I would be in that position. I didn't even get my bachelor's until I was, I don't know, 50 something. It was 2018. So, why did I decide to get an MSW? A few reasons. One is the reality of it is I am a nanny. I have never really had a career. I've been a piano teacher, which I have a video about that. I worked in inside sales. I was a stay-at-home mom for 11 years until I basically got divorced overnight. And the fact of the matter is, I am not getting any younger, but I will have to work until I die, most likely. So, being a nanny, you kind of top out. I make a decent wage, but I don't have any benefits. It's very physical. And so I'm like, you know what? If I'm going to have to work till I die, what is something that I think I would enjoy that gives me a lot of flexibility? And that is something I can do as I age, even if I become, God forbid, less mobile. So there's a big, not a big controversy. There's two ways to become a therapist. One is the MSW route. The other is an LPC, licensed professional counselor. When I started doing research, it was clear to me that the smartest thing for me, I just burped, was to go the social work route because there are so many different places you can get a job as a social worker. With an LPC, it's really you can only work at a place that does therapy. I knew it would give me the biggest opportunity to have like a 8 to 5 job, professional job with benefits. So that's number one. Number two, I have a history of childhood trauma and adult trauma, but we'll just keep it at childhood for now. And I did not know until about 5 years ago, thanks to social media, that my parents impacted me so much. No disrespect to my parents, they have both passed away, but they both had substance abuse issues. My dad was violent, not towards me, but towards his wives, my mom and his other wives. And that really affected me. And there was just so little known about that. I've talked before in another video about the adverse childhood experience quiz or test. And I remember taking that the first time. It basically goes over things you may have gone through as a kid, and the higher the score, the more likely is that you've got fallout in your day-to-day life as an adult because of it. And I scored pretty high on it. And that's, you can go look it up. It's called the ACEs. It's backed by science, etc. So once I started learning about that and how it was impacting me, I thought, wow, I would love to help people, especially women, be able to recognize this earlier and get the help that they need. We all know that in the US, mental health is not very accessible, and that's like a whole nother topic. But I just thought, wow, if I would have known 10 years ago, 20 years ago, 30 years ago what I know now, maybe I could have gotten better faster and done more with my life, honestly, to be quite frank with you, and maybe made different choices. So that was the second reason. Is there a third reason? I think I never really considered it because of my age, and I have talked about this multiple times, but I read online the story about a man who was actually an MD, and he had always wanted to go to law school. So in his mid 60s, he went back to law school and got his JD, and he never practiced as an attorney. Actually, he continued practicing as doctor well into, I feel like it was late 90s or maybe even 100, like especially as like a mentor and teacher. So I was like, well, if he could do it, I could do it. My kids were grown, and obviously I was winding down from active parenting. And so it just seemed like, you know what? Let's go for it. I will say one other major thing was I told two people. My kids were very supportive. They always are. They're wonderful and encouraging and all of that. I have a pretty small circle. I told my two closest friends. One of them was not discouraging, but not, I wouldn't say super encouraging. It was like, well, maybe there's something else you can do that, where you could make more money and it wouldn't take as much schooling or whatever. I mean, it was fine. But my other friend, I talk about this, and then I mean to go back and see if I can rehear that voice message, but she was so encouraging. It was just like, it made me feel like this is not a ridiculous idea. This is totally doable. That makes total sense. You will be great at it. You can do this. I'm so excited for you. And I don't know if I would have had the guts to do it if she hadn't been so gung-ho. So thank you, Kathy. Anyway, so that's that. This is way too long already. The next thing I did when I decided, honestly, I had gone through kind of a freeze episode. Like when I get triggered, I don't even remember what it was that caused it, but I just kind of go into, I almost can't function. I mean, I've stayed home from work over the years before I had a name for it. And I just kind of just like, I don't know how to explain it other than I just basically lay on my bed and I feel not any thoughts of harming myself, but just like completely frozen, hopeless, discouraged, just no energy. And it usually lasts 24 to 36 hours. And I had just been through an episode of that and started reading about healing childhood trauma, some of the books I have. And that's when it kind of hit me. It's like, you know what? You should do something with this for people because this is so interesting to you. So anyway, so then I started the research process of where do I go? How much does it cost? Can I get financial aid? How would I work and do this? Just what does it consist of? So I got my undergrad online through University of Texas, Arlington. And so that's where I checked first. Did hours and hours of research and ultimately decided to apply there, A, because it was in state, and B, because they find you your internship or your practicum, which I will talk about in a second. I thought, if I'm going to be working and then going to school and also having to do internships unpaid, I probably don't want to deal with having to find my own internship because that sounded challenging. So I picked UT, I think because I got my undergrad there. It was a pretty quick process of being accepted. I remember getting the email that I was accepted. This was like maybe September of 2022. Yes, no, 2023. And then I started in January of 2024. Full-time in grad school is 9 hours. So I've pretty much taken, and it's 6 hours in the summer. I've gone full-time except for one summer. My thoughts on the difficulty. It has been hard. It's been hard to juggle everything. I'm a little envious of those that can just go to school / internship full time. But because I'd been a mom already for almost 27 years, a single mom the majority of that time, I was pretty good at time management. So if something is due, most of the assignments in grad school at least are due Sunday at midnight. Or 11:59. And so, looking at my work schedule, when I'm not doing my internship, I work usually 4 days a week, like 8 to 9 hour shifts, plus I have about an hour commute total. When I am doing an internship, actually the first time I did it last year, 400 hours over the course of January to August, it nearly killed me. I would sometimes go 6, 8, 10, 12. I think the longest I went was 13 or 14 days without a day off between my regular job, my internship. That was no bueno. So this year I arranged financially I think there's a few times I work 4 days a week, but usually 3 days a week. I work at the clinic 2 days a week, work for free. And then that usually gives me 1 or 2 days a week off. They're not necessarily in a row, but that's when I can get homework done. So it's just time management. In a master's program in social work, it's a lot of writing, research, writing, doing some mock skills. Has it been hard? Yes. Has it been impossible? Clearly no, because I've made it this far. I think I have a 3.87 or something like that. During this time, I have navigated my youngest daughter getting pregnant, moving out of state, having her baby. He is now 15 months old in a week or so. And then my middle daughter is pregnant, and she will be having my granddaughter in the next few weeks. She's due September 8th. We've had baby showers, and I took time off to go be with my youngest daughter up in Oklahoma. And that was also in the middle of internship. And then I'm gonna plan on taking a week or 10 days to go down. They live in San Antonio, to see my daughter and her husband when they have her baby. Because most, not all, I don't want to generalize, because there are some people that aren't close with their moms, but I'm very close to my kids, and my daughters actually want me there, and I'll be there to help them come home and get settled and all of that. So I did not have that support when I had my 3 daughters, and so if they want me there, I'm there. I'll figure it out. So that I did not know all of that was going to happen while I was also going to grad school. I figured it out. So all in all, I will say I am very anxious about this semester, because it just started today. Because of the big, beautiful, really actually ugly, terrible bill, I have to take a class that I don't need in order to get my full financial aid. I only need 7 hours to graduate. It's a total of 61 hours for this master's program. I already have 54, but don't even get me started. I'm very salty about it. Because of the big, beautiful bill, you've probably heard that they've changed so many things, and one of those is you cannot get, even though I literally don't need another class, I cannot get my full financial aid if I don't take more hours than I need. So I'm taking an extra class. I did some research to try to find a very easy one. We'll see. It's, probably paid over $2,000 for. It's a $150 book. It's going to be hours of my time every week that I don't need in order to graduate. But you got to play the goofy game, because I actually needed all the financial aid so that I could work a little bit less, so that I didn't kill myself again these next, I started my internship in May and I go till December. So what was my point? I forgot what my point was. I'm glad I did it. I'm getting very burnt out at my nannying job. I'm a nanny for 4 kids. They've all been home for the summer. They're between 3 and 10. They're just very different. They have very different parenting style than I do. And, you can just only do so much as a caregiver. And so it takes a lot out of me. I will say they have been willing to work with me where I can have 2 specified days a week off in order to do my internship, and I'm very appreciative of that. That way it's been a really good job to have while I'm going to graduate school and working on an internship. More details about the internship. So I have lots of thoughts about this and how terrible it is, but for an MSW, your foundation, so if you get a social work degree, a bachelor's degree, your master's program is only 1 year. It's a really intense year. I think it's like 32 hours or something. So probably like 10 to 12 hours per semester, part of that being internship. My bachelor's was not in social work. So my program was a 2-year program, 61 hours, year round. The first year you had to have 400 hours of placement, and mine was at a inpatient behavioral health hospital, so like an inpatient psych unit. Learned a ton. Great supervisor. And then this year, my advanced year, they call it, this would be the year I would be taking had I had a bachelor's in social work. It is 500 hours. You can do that in 1 semester, which I cannot do because that would be like working 40 hours a week for free and then working my paid job 30 hours a week or 35, whatever. It just, obviously the math does not work. So I do what we call a split placement. So I did the summer and then I'll do the fall, and it's been a great placement. I'm working at a private therapy clinic. There's about 7 clinicians, and so I get to observe therapy and see how the back end of private practice works as far as insurance, client records and all of that. So it's been good. So I just started back at that today too. I work on Tuesdays and Wednesdays. That is something that has been, if I even got paid like $10 or $12 an hour, it would make a huge difference because I work like 20 hours a week. But they're pretty much all unpaid. There are a few paid ones here and there. And I feel like if this were a male-dominated field, there would be pay. For instance, my youngest daughter's partner is an aerospace engineer. He did an internship before he graduated, and it was paid. It wasn't a ton, but it was paid. I think it was like $18 or $20 an hour. Anyway, I have thoughts on that. But that's the way it is. And so semester, that's where I was. This semester is tough because I start today. I'm taking 9 hours, which is 3 classes. I'm doing my internship. One of those classes is a capstone class. So it's like this big project. And then I also work. My daughter's having a baby in a few weeks. I'm going to go, of course, not miss that. I have a presentation I give this semester at my internship that's for continuing education credit for the clinicians. That's a big deal. It's like an hour-long presentation. I'm preparing for that. In order to be a MSW, you need to get a state license. And so I will sit for an exam probably in October/November. I want to try to get my license before I graduate so that I'll have a better time finding a job. You have a 6 months provisionary period where you can get hired and you have 6 months to pass. But obviously you are way more hireable if you say, hey, I already have my license. I'm not a risk, because there are people that take the test obviously and don't pass the first time. So I've been studying for that. And then my lease is up on my apartment on, piece of fuzz blowing by me, the first few days in December, which is the end of my semester. So I am supposed to move. I'm actually moving up to Oklahoma to be closer to my youngest daughter and my grandson, but there's no way I can move when I'm doing an internship and finishing up school. So I think I'm going to delay it by a month. And then of course I need to be updating my resume and job hunting probably starting in September, October. So there's just a lot going on, a lot of unknowns, and I don't do well with that thanks to my childhood trauma. So new place to live, new job, a new baby. It's a lot, but I've made it this far. I can do it. If any of you all have specific questions about MSW, clearly I'm not an expert, but have made it this far in the process. Leave me a comment, and as I always end my videos, it is not too late. You're not too old. So if there's something you're wanting to do, do not let your age hold you back. I will show you, I did treat myself to a new pair of shoes for the new semester. What do you think? I think they're very cute, and I'm 5'4" and shrinking, so I like the platform. So, all right, Bobo, say goodbye to your friends. All right, thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one.